Geena Davis, one of Hollywood's brightest icons of the 1980s and 1990s. From her groundbreaking performances in The Fly, Beetlejuice, and Thelma Louise, to her portrayal of a legendary female baseball player in A League of Their Own, she didn't just captivate audiences with natural talent. She became a trailblazer for strong, independent women on the big screen. With an Academy Award and a series of roles that made cinematic history, Geena once stood as living proof that women could be at the center of every story. Yet behind that dazzling light lay the kind of pain few ever saw. A string of box office disappointments, the cruel mark of aging, and the relentless sexism of Hollywood sent her once soaring career into a steep decline. From a global superstar, Geena Davis almost vanished from the red carpet. Today, at 69, Geena still stands tall with a calm, knowing smile. But behind that quiet pride are wounds that never truly healed. Broken marriages, painful betrayals, and the loneliness of a woman who once stood at the top, only to be left behind. Geena's story isn't just the tragedy of a movie star. It's the bitter truth about what it means to be a woman in the world of film. And before we delve into those silent sorrows, if you've ever admired Geena Davis, the woman who fought endlessly to be seen and heard, leave a like as a small gesture of respect for a proud journey she has never abandoned. Geena Davis was born on January 21st, 1956, in Wareham, Massachusetts, into a quiet, middle-class family. Her father, William F. Davis, was a civil engineer, and her mother, Lucille, worked as a teacher's assistant. They were modest people who only wanted their children to fit in with the world. But even as a child, Geena never quite fit in the way they hoped. She grew at a remarkable pace. By age 10, she was taller than most of the boys, and by her teens, she had reached 6 feet, 1.83 meters, a height rarely seen in girls at the time. It should have been a gift, but for Geena, it became a mark of solitude. In every class photo, she stood in the back row, shoulders slightly hunched, as if by making herself smaller, she could stop the staring. The curious glances, the whispers, and the teasing slowly pushed her inward, away from crowds, until she became a girl who only felt safe when she could disappear. With few friends, Geena sought refuge in books and music, places where no one judged her height or difference. She learned piano and organ, sang in the church choir, and told her story in the quietest way she could. Yet deep inside that shy girl burned a secret longing to stand on a stage, to tell the stories of those who were never seen as belonging. Cinema became the mirror for that dream. She admired Katharine Hepburn and Audrey Hepburn, practicing before the mirror for hours. Years later, she would admit, "I used to wish I were smaller, but then I realized the only thing that really hurt was trying to shrink myself to fit in." Then fate opened an unexpected door, a student exchange program in Sweden. For the first time, Geena found herself in a place where no one knew who she was, and no one called her strange. In Scandinavia, tall women were seen as strong and attractive. Her difference was treated as a gift. Geena began to stand straight in photos, to see the world from the posture of someone who no longer needed permission to exist. She became fluent in Swedish, a rare skill for an American at the time, and, more importantly, learned to accept herself. It was a turning point that made her quietly believe. Perhaps there was a place in the world for people like her, if only she dared to step out and find it. Returning to the U.S., Geena set her heart on acting. She attended New England College, then transferred to Boston University, where she graduated with a degree in drama in 1979. Without hesitation, she moved to New York City with only 2 things: a diploma and a stubborn dream. But Hollywood doesn't reward dreamers without backing. To survive, she took whatever work she could find, waiting tables for rude customers, selling clothes in shops where she never felt she belonged, even working as a live mannequin for Ann Taylor, standing motionless for hours just to draw customers' eyes. She later said that during those long, still hours, she imagined herself on a great stage, where people noticed her not for her height, but for her talent. That unusual job led her to a modeling agency. Though she never became a supermodel, her sharp features and confident aura landed her small modeling gigs, just enough to keep her acting dream alive. The one most called unrealistic. She was patient, persistent, climbing a hill no one believed had a summit. But Geena believed. In the darkness of her hardest days, she still believed. In 1982, luck finally came when Geena Davis landed a small role in the film Tootsie, starring alongside Dustin Hoffman. But behind the scenes, things were far from simple. Dustin Hoffman, the film's leading man, was later accused of behaving inappropriately toward Geena during production. He reportedly invited her to a private audition in his office, and when she arrived, he asked her to perform by pretending to seduce him, leaving Geena deeply uncomfortable. She never spoke out publicly at the time, but years later admitted it had been a frightening experience, one that opened her eyes to the harsh reality of what women often faced in Hollywood. Yet she refused to let it break her spirit. Tootsie became a huge success, giving her the first glimmer of recognition. Though her role was small, it was the first door that opened to Hollywood. But to become a true star, Geena still had a long road ahead, one lined with pain and disappointment, and it would not be easy. Geena Davis had no powerful connections in the industry, no insider to smooth her path. Tootsie, 1982, her very first film, was both a box office hit and a critical triumph, earning 10 Oscar nominations. Yet her role was too minor to stand out amid an A-list cast that included Dustin Hoffman and Jessica Lange. When the lights faded, Geena understood that if she wanted to go further, she would have to do it on her own. With no major film offers, she turned to television, a less glamorous but more forgiving space to hone her craft. From Buffalo Bill, 1983-1984, to Knight Rider, Remington Steele, and Family Ties, Geena appeared steadily in short guest roles. Though these parts didn't make her a household name, they taught her how to command the frame, how to use her eyes and subtle expressions to stay visible even in small roles. As she later recalled, television taught me how to survive in small spaces while still making the audience believe. After several relentless years, film opportunities began to trickle in. Fletch, 1985, and Transylvania, 65,000, 1985, failed to ignite her career. The latter even drew harsh reviews. But on that set, she met Jeff Goldblum, her co-star and future second husband. That partnership marked the beginning of a new chapter. In 1986, Geena Davis and Goldblum starred together in The Fly, David Cronenberg's sci-fi horror masterpiece. Her role as Veronica Quaife demanded both intelligence and emotional depth, balancing reason with fear. Geena's performance was understated yet hauntingly real. The Fly became a box office success, grossing over $60 million and lifting her out of television obscurity. Film critic Roger Ebert called Davis a wonderful surprise, an actress capable of bringing depth and humanity to a film dominated by special effects. From a live mannequin in an Ann Taylor store, Geena Davis had transformed into a respected actress recognized for her craft. She didn't chase fame through scandal or rely on her looks, only through discipline and persistence. By enduring those difficult early years, Geena Davis proved a quiet truth. If you can't start at the top, start with patience. And that patience would become the foundation of her brilliant career to come. After The Fly, Geena Davis began to emerge as one of the most promising faces of late 1980s American cinema. Her distinctive beauty, intelligent aura, and versatility allowed her to transcend the stereotype of the pretty woman beside the leading man, a mold that dominated Hollywood at the time. Directors started to notice Geena not just for her looks, but for her rare ability to breathe life into her characters. In 1988, she appeared in Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, a dark comedy with a surreal visual style, playing Barbara Maitland, a young woman who dies suddenly and finds herself trapped as a ghost in her own home with her husband. The film became a major hit, grossing over $70 million at the U.S. box office and later earning cult classic status. Beetlejuice not only proved Davis's talent in eccentric and fantastical roles, but also made her beloved by audiences for her balance of humor, fear, and heartfelt warmth. That same year, Geena starred in The Accidental Tourist, 1988, the performance that would mark the true turning point of her career. She played Muriel Pritchett, a quirky yet compassionate woman who helps the grieving protagonist, played by William Hurt, rediscover meaning in life. Her performance drew widespread acclaim for its naturalism, sensitivity, and the effortless magnetism she brought to every scene. The role earned Geena Davis the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in 1989, the defining milestone of her career up to that point. With the Golden Statue in hand, she officially joined Hollywood's ranks of true leading stars. But she didn't stop there. In 1991, Geena Davis co-starred in Thelma Louise, a film that became an enduring symbol of modern feminist cinema. As Thelma Dickinson, a naive housewife trapped in a dull marriage, Geena and co-star Susan Sarandon, as Louise, took audiences on a tragic, defiant road to freedom and self-discovery. The film became a cultural phenomenon, earning 6 Academy Award nominations, including Best Actress for both Davis and Sarandon, and was later listed by the American Film Institute, AFI, among the 100 greatest films of all time. The final scene, where the two women clasp hands and drive off the edge of the Grand Canyon, became one of the most iconic images in film history. It symbolized the yearning for freedom among women in the modern world, and Geena Davis became the face of a generation of actresses who dared to defy convention. She later said that Thelma and Louise changed the way I looked at women's roles in film. I started to see just how enormous the gender imbalance on screen really was, and that realization became the beginning of another journey for me. Just a year later, in 1992, Geena Davis made her mark again with A League of Their Own, a sports comedy drama about female baseball players during World War II. Her role as Dottie Hinson, a gifted, strong, yet deeply human athlete, won the hearts of millions and cemented her status at the top of 1990s Hollywood. The film grossed over $130 million, becoming one of the highest-earning sports movies of the decade, and was later preserved by the U.S. Library of Congress as a work of cultural, historical, and aesthetic significance. Thanks to A League of Their Own, Davis became an emblem of the independent woman, intelligent, powerful, and full of heart. She also began to publicly identify as a feminist, saying that the film helped her understand the power of being seen, when women are no longer just side characters in men's stories. By this point, Geena Davis was no longer on the sidelines of Hollywood. She stood as living proof that a woman could achieve both commercial success and artistic acclaim without sacrificing her identity. From The Fly to Thelma and Louise and A League of Their Own, she built the image of a different kind of star. One who didn't rely on appearance or trends, but on talent, intellect, and quiet determination. After the dazzling glow of the early 1990s, Geena Davis seemed to have it all: fame, artistic recognition, and a rare position of equality in a Hollywood that seldom allowed women to stand shoulder to shoulder with men. Yet, just as she reached her greatest heights, the first cracks began to appear, not only in her career, but in her personal life. Following A League of Their Own, Davis continued to choose roles that demanded both physical strength and emotional depth. In 1992, she starred opposite Dustin Hoffman in Hero, a film with a clever premise that nevertheless failed to meet expectations. Then came Angie, 1994, a drama about a single pregnant woman that many believed would earn Davis further awards. But it flopped at the box office and was panned by critics. The bold choices that had once earned her praise now made studios hesitant. When Speechless, 1994, also failed to make an impact, Geena decided to pivot, this time toward action films, a genre long dominated by men. Together with her then-husband, director Renny Harlin, she set out to create what they envisioned as Hollywood's first female action hero. The result was Cutthroat Island, 1995, an ambitious pirate adventure with a massive $100 million budget, directed by Harlin and starring Davis in the lead. But upon release, it became a box office disaster, earning less than 10% of its budget and quickly being labeled one of the biggest flops in Hollywood history. Theaters were nearly empty, major studios lost tens of millions, and Renny Harlin was heavily criticized for reckless overspending. For Geena Davis, the failure was more than a financial blow. It nearly sealed the career she had spent over a decade building. Overnight, the image of the powerful leading woman vanished, replaced by the label of box office poison. In 1996, she attempted a comeback with another Harlin-directed action film, The Long Kiss Goodnight. Although the film later gained cult status and received better critical reviews, it earned only half its production budget upon release. After 2 consecutive flops, Geena Davis and Renny Harlin divorced in 1998. She later admitted that it was a period of complete disorientation, her career in free fall, her marriage in ruins, and film offers disappearing one by one. In an interview with the New York Times, she confessed she had to stop. She didn't know where to go, what to choose, or whether she was even allowed to dream anymore. 2 years later, Geena all but withdrew from the big screen. Aside from her role in Stuart Little, 1999, a light-hearted family film, she took on no major projects for nearly a decade. When she turned 40, Geena Davis began to realize that Hollywood no longer treated women as it once had. It was then that she understood what so many actresses before her had already learned. She just hadn't believed it would happen to her. No more scripts arrived, no more audition calls. She had thought that success, an Oscar, and a respected name would shield her from the bias of age. But she was wrong. Commander-in-Chief, 2005, the television series in which she played the first female president of the United States, was hailed as Geena Davis's great comeback. The premiere drew record ratings. She won a Golden Globe and was nominated for an Emmy. But after just 1 season, the show was canceled. The official reason was declining viewership, but many believed the truth was simpler. Hollywood still wasn't ready to see a woman, especially a woman over 50, hold power on screen. The deeper pain came from silence. In 2022, when Beetlejuice 2 was announced, nearly every original cast member was invited back, except Geena Davis. No offer, no message, not even a phone call. For most people, it was just casting. For her, it was something far more painful. The realization that Hollywood had so easily forgotten what she had helped to build. Love had left. Her career had turned its back, and society itself no longer had patience for a middle-aged woman demanding to be seen and heard. Geena Davis was forced to live quietly, carrying a weight that few could imagine. If her career had once soared to great heights, only to plummet, her personal life fared no better. Behind those strong, intelligent, independent characters was a woman who had endured 4 marriages and 4 heartbreaks. Geena Davis met Richard Emilo in the early 1980s, back when she was still a model and aspiring actress. Richard, a restaurant manager in New York, had nothing to do with show business, and perhaps that was exactly what made the relationship feel safe. Amid the stress of auditions and the sting of being dismissed in Hollywood, Geena found in him a sense of calm and normalcy. They married in 1982. At that time, Geena had just appeared in Tootsie, but had yet to establish a real foothold in the industry. Their married life was quiet, no drama, no publicity. But as Geena's career began to rise and her time at home grew shorter, the gap between them widened. Richard wanted stability, while Geena was stepping onto a path where everything changed from month to month. They divorced after less than a year. There was no scandal, no courtroom battle, just a quiet separation between 2 people who realized they were no longer heading in the same direction. For years afterward, Geena rarely spoke about that marriage. It faded into the background of her life, a brief and blurry chapter. Yet it was also the first turning point that made her understand that the peace she sought would never come from having someone beside her, but from learning how to stand firmly on her own chosen path. After her brief marriage to Richard Emilo, Geena Davis threw herself back into work, devoting all her time to new film projects. It was during this period in 1985 that she met Jeff Goldblum on the set of Transylvania 65000. He was already a well-known actor, witty, intelligent, and uniquely charismatic. The kind of man Geena rarely encountered in Hollywood's tense audition rooms. Their differences quickly became the source of their connection. Unlike her first marriage, this relationship began through work and soon blossomed into love. They went on to co-star in 2 more films, The Fly, 1986, and Earth Girls Are Easy, 1988. The 2 shared not only screen time, but also a deep belief in art, both introspective, perfectionist, and wholly devoted to their craft. To the public, they appeared to be one of Hollywood's rare, perfectly matched couples, sharp, quirky, and seemingly made to perform together. But the same environment that had brought them together eventually pulled them apart. When The Fly catapulted both actors into stardom, their paths began to diverge. Jeff Goldblum was cast in a series of major projects, often away from home, while Geena struggled with the pressure of choosing roles and proving she was more than Jeff Goldblum's girlfriend. Behind the glossy magazine photos of a golden couple were 2 people who barely had time to share a life. After 3 years of marriage, their union ended quietly. No public feud, no accusations, just 2 artists passing each other at a time when both were consumed by ambition and chasing their separate dreams. For Geena Davis, it was a breakup that lingered with regret, because this time she lost not only a husband, but also her most trusted creative partner, someone who had understood her on set better than anyone else. And then, as the echoes of The Fly began to fade, Geena once again found herself at a crossroads, newly heartbroken and more aware than ever of the dark side of fame. It was in that fragile yet defiant moment that she met Renny Harlin, a driven Finnish director who would take her life into a new chapter, one filled with brilliance, noise, and ultimately heartbreak. Their paths crossed in the early 1990s when Geena Davis was already an Oscar winner for The Accidental Tourist and still glowing from the success of Thelma Louise. Renny Harlin, meanwhile, was Hollywood's rising star after directing Die Hard 2. They met at a moment when both were at the height of their power. And perhaps that was why they believed that when two strong forces collide, they could conquer the world together. They married in 1993. At first, it seemed like the perfect match, an intelligent, charismatic actress and a dynamic, ambitious director. Harlin often said in interviews that he wanted to turn Geena into Hollywood's first true female action hero. And true to his word, he wrote and directed 2 films for her, Cutthroat Island, 1995, and The Long Kiss Goodnight, 1996. But ambition can be a double-edged sword. Cutthroat Island, a lavish pirate adventure with an enormous budget, quickly became one of the most notorious box office disasters in film history. The revenue couldn't cover even a fraction of its cost. Studios lost tens of millions, and Geena Davis was cruelly branded as the star who sank with the ship. The Long Kiss Goodnight received better reviews, but couldn't save her collapsing image. From one of Hollywood's most celebrated actresses, Geena Davis suddenly vanished from the short lists of major studios. And just like her career, their marriage began to fracture. While Geena struggled to find her footing again, Renny Harlin continued chasing blockbuster projects, growing distant and increasingly cold. In 1998, tabloids reported that Harlin was allegedly having an affair with his personal assistant, who later gave birth to a child. The news landed like the final blow. Geena Davis made no public statements, no accusations. She simply filed for divorce in silence. Her third marriage ended in bitter failure. It wasn't just the collapse of a relationship, it dragged her career down with it. From being hailed as the new feminist icon of the 1990s, she became someone Hollywood quietly avoided. In the years that followed, Davis almost disappeared from the big screen. She withdrew from the spotlight, spending her days in solitude, seemingly accepting that some fires, once burned too brightly, can only leave ashes behind. It wasn't until the early 2000s, now in her 40s, that Geena Davis found another kind of anchor, not in film, but in her private life. When she met Reza in the late 1990s, she had already weathered nearly every storm of her life. Her career had waned after Cutthroat Island. Her reputation had suffered, and her faith in marriage was nearly gone. Reza, a young, soft-spoken neurosurgeon, entered her life at a time when Geena no longer sought fame or applause. He wasn't a celebrity, nor a director or actor. It was precisely his quiet steadiness that made her feel safe. That encounter marked the beginning of what seemed to be a peaceful chapter after so much turmoil. But time would later reveal that even the simplest form of happiness was never meant to come easily for Geena Davis. They began dating and quietly married in 2001. No lavish ceremony, no paparazzi, no headlines. It was a mature decision, born out of a desire for peace rather than showmanship. For the first time in many years, Geena Davis stepped away from major film sets to live a real family life. In 2002, at the age of 46, she gave birth to her first daughter. 2 years later, at 48, she welcomed twin boys. In an interview, she once said that motherhood made her feel more right than any role ever could. Geena devoted most of her time to her children, stepping back from her acting career to do something she had never truly experienced before, being present for her family. In the public eye, this was one of the rare peaceful chapters of her life. No scandals, no industry pressure, no roles under scrutiny. She began to focus her energy on social causes, most notably founding the Geena Davis Institute on Gender in Media, an organization dedicated to researching and promoting gender equality in film and television. Yet that peace would not last forever. After nearly 2 decades together in 2018, Reza abruptly filed for divorce, ending what many had believed to be the most stable relationship of Geena's life. What shocked the public even more was Geena's response. She claimed that the two had never been legally married and therefore could not legally divorce. The revelation ignited a media frenzy. Reporters called it the divorce without a marriage, one of the strangest cases Hollywood had ever seen. While Reza insisted that they had lived as husband and wife for nearly 17 years, sharing property, children, and legal responsibilities, Geena remained firm. Their relationship, she said, was a personal partnership, not a legally recognized marriage. The legal battle dragged on for years, exposing private details she had spent decades protecting. And though the case was eventually settled, Geena Davis's public image suffered deeply in its aftermath. For someone who had long represented the image of female empowerment and fought for equality in cinema, being associated with phrases like denying a marriage or refusing spousal support was a devastating blow. After that, she all but disappeared from public life. No award appearances, no personal interviews. On the rare occasions she did appear, Geena spoke only about research, data, and the need for systemic change in the film industry, never about her private life. Now, in her 60s, Geena Davis is no longer the Hollywood star gracing magazine covers, but a woman who has quietly chosen to stand behind the screen, using her own experience to help reform the very system that once wounded her. And though none of her 4 marriages ended happily, they shaped her into someone resilient, grounded, and deeply aware of the cost of living truthfully and unapologetically as herself. For Geena Davis, her greatest legacy does not lie in her Oscar statue or the films that once placed her at the top of Hollywood, but in her courage to turn her own wounds into a force for change across an entire industry. After stepping away from the spotlight, Geena began to realize that what had haunted her for years in the business was not only Hollywood's harshness toward women, but also the way it defined women through the lens of men. In the 2000s, while watching movies with her young daughter, Geena noticed a painful pattern. In nearly every animated film, male characters dominated the story, while female ones were confined to tired stereotypes: pretty, polite, or dependent. That realization led her in 2004 to establish the Geena Davis Institute on Gender in Media, a research organization dedicated to studying gender representation in film and television. It was not a symbolic movement, but a data-driven institution, using AI and content analytics to measure how often women appeared on screen, how many lines they spoke, and what roles they played. The numbers were startling. In thousands of films and children's programs surveyed, only about 30% of speaking characters were female. Armed with that evidence, Geena began working with major studios like Disney, Warner Brothers, and Universal to adjust scripts and ensure gender balance from the earliest stages of production. She didn't protest on talk shows or point fingers in public. Geena Davis worked quietly with data, logic, and persuasion. Her institute has since become one of the most influential organizations in Hollywood's fight for gender equality, officially recognized by the United Nations and UNESCO as a consulting partner. Beyond research, Geena also founded the Geena Davis Leadership Awards, honoring filmmakers and organizations that expand opportunities for women and girls in the arts. For her relentless dedication, she was awarded the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award at the 2019 Oscars, a long overdue but profoundly fitting recognition. And perhaps that moment, when Geena Davis stood on the Academy stage, not as a movie star, but as a woman who had dared to say enough to outdated norms, was the true pinnacle of her life. After receiving the award, Geena shared that she no longer cared about fame or a traditional film career. What mattered to her now was ensuring that the world her daughter would grow up in would be different from the one she had to endure. Reports from the Geena Davis Institute have since been adopted by major studios as a new standard for character development. Studios began calculating the ratio of male to female dialogue, tracking how female representation affected young audiences, and adjusting content toward greater balance. An internal study at Disney even admitted, "The recommendations from the Davis Institute have changed the way we tell stories about women." Through that work, Geena's legacy expanded far beyond art. She became a voice for an entire generation of actresses once kept in the shadows, women who had remained silent out of fear of losing opportunities, but who could now raise their heads and demand the respect they deserved. On global stages, from the United Nations to the World Conference on Women, Geena Davis spoke not about herself, but about a new vision of equality. For those who have followed her journey from Thelma and Louise to a league of their own, it's impossible not to feel moved. The woman once defined by her looks, once cast aside as she aged, is now the very person forcing Hollywood to look at itself in the mirror. And when asked what moment made her proudest, Geena Davis simply smiled and said, "It's when I turn on the TV and see a little girl in a cartoon say she wants to be a scientist. And no one tells her that girls can't do that." From an actress who once felt out of place in the film world, Geena Davis became the woman who changed it. Not with the light of fame, but with the light of awareness and unwavering conviction. Having stepped away from the blinding glare of red carpets, Geena Davis has chosen a different rhythm, one defined by clarity, simplicity, and purpose. She now works in project mode, appearing only when her voice can make a tangible impact. A working session with her institute's team on dialogue measuring algorithms, a virtual meeting with screenwriters to discuss character balance, or a round table with film schools on how to train more female storytellers. The rest of the time, she devotes herself to her family, maintaining strict privacy, never putting her children in the public eye, and politely declining invitations meant only to generate buzz. Since 2015, she has remained deeply involved with the Bentonville Film Festival, which she co-founded to celebrate diverse storytelling and provide equal opportunities for women, people of color, and underrepresented filmmakers. There, Geena doesn't dominate the stage with speeches. She sits quietly in screenings, listens to young directors talk about their first films, connects them with distributors, and occasionally offers a brief, well-placed comment that opens a new door. For her, this too is a form of performance, handing the script and the spotlight to those who need it most. After years of silence about her personal life, in 2022 she released her memoir, Dying of Politeness, not as a tale of complaint, but as a reflection on the cost of being taught to be polite. The book became a handbook of courage for women both inside and outside the film industry, and it symbolically closed a long chapter of her life. Geena no longer needed to prove anything to Hollywood. Occasionally, she still takes on television or short-form roles if the character offers depth and aligns with her values. But her main stage now lies elsewhere. In data, classrooms, and discussions where one meaningful story can reshape how hundreds more are told. Now approaching 70, she stays active, participates in community programs, and nurtures quiet yet lasting professional relationships. No longer loud, no longer needing to win arguments, Geena Davis has chosen to stand where she's most useful, behind the camera, where a single corrected data point, a rewritten minor role, or a little girl seeing herself on screen can mean one thing above all: the freedom to dream big. After everything, Geena Davis's journey, from a lost young woman in early 1980s Hollywood to an Oscar-winning star, and ultimately a quiet reformer who helped change an entire system, stands as proof of the power of perseverance and self-respect. She has lived through career highs, painful failures, 4 broken marriages, and countless moments of being underestimated, yet she never lost faith in her own worth. Geena Davis showed us that one doesn't need to be perfect, only persistent and honest with oneself. That light doesn't just come from the stage, but from the way we live after all the effort and struggle, and that sometimes changing the world doesn't begin with loud declarations, but with the courage to say no to injustice, even if you're standing alone. Thank you for staying with us through this moving story. Which moment in Geena Davis's life and career impressed you the most? Share your thoughts or leave a comment saying, "Love Geena Davis," below, if you too admire her strength and her extraordinary journey. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the next inspiring stories about the stars who changed the world simply by the way they lived.